share in this conversation about this important region of our world and an important moment for our church. So we'll begin with prayer, and we thought we'd share a prayer that was inspired by Sister Dorothy Stang, who many of you might know was an American nun who dedicated much of her life to the peoples and the many beings in the Amazon, and was killed because of her work in 2005. So this is a prayer that was inspired by her life. So I invite you to remember that we're in the loving presence of our Creator. Blessed are you, Holy Creator, source of all that is good, beautiful and whole. Where wholeness is splintered or shattered, goodness damaged or marred, and beauty bruised or broken, we ask for healing and deep peace. Be healing balm for this world, for all peoples, creatures, places, events, and for the environment. We ask your protection upon those working to protect your creation. Give them courage and strength of heart, and enlighten those who possess power and money, that they may avoid the sin of indifference or even worse, violence. Inspired by Dorothy Stang, your servant and martyr, we pray in communion with all the saints in glory through Christ our Lord. Amen. So the rhythm of our time together is happy to be sharing this space with several other wonderful women. I'll give a brief introduction of the webinar, and then we'll see a video from one of GCCM's Laudato Si animators, Lucy Urbina Alejandro, who works with the Archdiocese there, as well as been raising the Laudato Si message in Tena, which is right in the Amazon in Ecuador. And then we'll hear local regional perspectives from Susana Espinosa of REPAM. I'll share a bit about the global perspective of what we are doing here at the Global Catholic Climate Movement. We'll have plenty of time for questions and comments, and then Susana will close us in prayer. So what I first thought I would do was just to share a bit about the Synod that's taking place. And perhaps many of you are already aware that Pope Francis had called for a special gathering of the bishops to look at this theme of Amazonia, new paths for the church and for an integral ecology. So this is going to take place in October, from October 6th to 27th in Rome, with the main aims to identify new ways for the evangelization of the people of that region in the Amazon, but particularly the indigenous peoples, who Pope Francis reminds us are often forgotten and without the prospect of a serene future. The other reason that Pope Francis thought we should focus on this region was that even though it's local, it's specific to Latin America, it has global implications. These are the lungs of the earth in many ways, and so it's an area that we need to make sure that we protect. And just briefly, the Amazon, I think we all know, is very significant. It's the world's largest tropical forest. It holds half of the planet's remaining rainforest and is home to many, many people, including over 2 million indigenous people, and home to half of the world's species of plants and animals. So again, it's a local area, but it has global implications. And so we're delighted. I'm just grateful that Pope Francis is bringing our attention to this area to see how we can make sure that we're offering the protection that's needed. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Dominica, who's going to show us a video by Lucy.
Thanks, Christina. Yes, I'm going to show you the video that our animator, who's leading the action in the Amazon, did for us. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry at the beginning for the sound was a little low. And this is the video. And also at the end of the webinar, we can share the video and also you can share it like with your network.
Great. Thank you so much, Dome. And so we'll now move to Susana of REPAM. And I hope those of you who aren't familiar with REPAM, it's the church network that's addressing the issues of the Amazon region. And so we look forward to hearing what you have to share, Susana. You're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for this meeting. It's a pleasure to be with you. Well, I am Susana Espinosa from REPAM. I've worked here since 2016. It has been a long process of learning a lot about the Amazon and the mission of the church in the Amazon. So I'm very glad to be with you here in this meeting. So about about REPAM, just some facts that may help you to understand the process. Well, we are a platform of the church institutions in the Amazon region. So every institution that collaborates also with the church also joins the network. But we have a very special focus on the people that live in the Amazon, especially the indigenous peoples and other traditional cultures and communities. So basically, we REPAM exists since 2014. It's a very huge effort from different regional platforms, also from the church that exists in Latin America, from the religious, from the bishops and the Caritas of Latin America that joined this network and gave birth to it. So about the Synod, it's very important to also explain to you that it has been a very long process, not since the announcement of the Synod, but since the very beginning of the network, because we believe that to build a church is to walk together as the people of God. So it has been for us a very complex process of hearing those voices, those cries from the people that are suffering the most in the Amazon region. And well, in 2017, the Pope Francis announced the Synod, but it came as a very huge hope message for all the church in the Amazon, as they all consider themselves as a peripheral church, as a peripheral reality that not always receives much attention as the territory with its importance. So this process of the Synod has been very helpful for us, but also very like encouraging for hearing those voices, or to give a space for those voices that are not being heard in the worldwide perspective and also the regional perspective. So we made a very deep process of hearing and sharing with the people. Well, the idea was that it is such a diverse reality and complex reality that we had to think of the better way to connect those voices from the territory to the people in the Vatican that are thinking these synodal processes, and they are not very used to hear those voices from the territory directly, and they have like more intermediates on the path. So that was the first thing that we had to think about. So just to share with you some facts about the Amazon, and also from the synodal process, we are like 34 millions people living in the Amazon region. 3.5 million of them are indigenous peoples. We have close to 400 different indigenous nations, indigenous tribes that live in the Amazon region. We have also these very special gift from God. There are the 140 groups of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation. They like preserve the most unique kind of living in the Amazon without making any contact to others or to the big cities and so on. This is a very special place. As in the world, they are just 180 indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation, indigenous groups. So in the Amazon, we have the very big part of it. We have common threads to the people, to these 34 million people that live in the Amazon, and they are like, of course, you may have some idea. All the extractive industries, the deforestation, the drug trafficking, the land expropriation, and the persecution of environmental leaders, that it has been increasing these days. Just in Colombia, we have in 10 months 120 leaders that have been killed. We have this huge projects of highways and other kind of projects that threat the life of the people and also the life of the forest, the animals, the plants, all the diversity that we have there. So we have like this whole diversity of cultures, of like gifts from every one of these indigenous peoples, and then we have these common threads. So how does the church respond to that? Is what we asked in the synodal process. So for that, as Christina shared at the beginning, with the part of the title of the synod, these new paths for the church. So the church has to encourage itself to look for new paths, to connect with the people, and also to share this good news from the word of Lord. So to look for these new paths is a very strong appealment of the Pope, and also to look for this integral ecology in its own sense. So it's a very a huge challenge for us to answer to those commandments from the Pope, to share the voices that are living those new paths, that are living those profound convictions of integral ecology. So we made a plan for making those territorial hearings. They were some territorial assemblies that were spaces very diverse, was a very were like spaces of 200 people, kind of thing. And also we had some thematic forums that were specialized in some in some topics like just the indigenous reality, or just human rights, or just the border reality, and so on. So those spaces, those different spaces, events of hearing and dialoguing with the people, were the spaces to get all those voices. And so they calculated that were 87,000 different voices that participated on the whole process of the synodal path of the Amazon. So 20 from those 87,000 people, 27 were direct people that sign on the events, but other 62,000 were part of the preparatory assemblies to this huge assembly. So it was a very huge process. A lot of people joined and shared with us. So we are very, very thankful for all of them. We have a huge responsibility of returning to them all those products, those inputs that they gave, but also the commitment of sharing with them after the synod these constructions of the new paths, the idea of having them as a long-term path for the church. So those 260 events that were placed in the Amazon to hear those voices, finally delivered a document that REPAM joined all those voices to deliver that document to the General Secretariat of the Synod of Bishops, and they are going to return those that document with all the theological perspective to the people, like to publish that instrumentum laboris that will be the main material for the synodal fathers. And between those 3 weeks of synod, they will be discussing this document and also returning to the people what they have discussed. So that was what I wanted to share with you. I hope you made some questions, and so we have some time to make like a deep perspective of this information. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Susana. And I feel like what you shared really emphasized what a long and complex and intentional process that you all at REPAM have embarked on. You know, with so much of the emphasis, I feel like is focused on the October meeting, but what you point out is that so much, 80,000 voices is huge, and so many of them indigenous, had to contribute to this conversation, this dialogue. And then I know what you all are also saying is that the process doesn't end there at the Synod. That's almost just the beginning. So whatever comes back, as you mentioned, you're accountable to all those assemblies that and people you met to go back and then to integrate and to execute whatever, so I just appreciate and want to honor the tremendous work that you all have been doing, and helps us to remember that it's about the process and the dialogue. So it's really, I know you all have been working very hard and very much behind the scenes. So thank you for all of that. So we'll look forward to more conversation.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share a little bit about kind of the global perspective, just from our perspective from GCCM. And I hope you all are aware of this preparatory document that came out, which is supposed to give all of us a chance to really reflect on the Synod and its implications for us. Because here, those of us here at GCCM, even though many of us aren't located in the Amazon, we know that it has relevance to us. And I just want to read a quote from this preparatory document where it says, "The Synod's reflections transcend the strictly ecclesial Amazonian sphere because they focus on the universal church as well as on the future of the entire planet." So I just want to alert you all to this document, and I'll be sharing that we at GCCM have developed a small group process for groups to pray with it. That our steering committee actually went through, and our team have actually gone through as well to try to discern how we can respond to the Synod. And REPAM as well has put together some resources with this document just to guide us in ways to kind of go deeper into it and to ask questions. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of this. And we'll send out an email after the webinar with relevant links, including this preparatory document. So here's the quote I just shared. And so our goals at GCCM around the Synod reflect our strategic priorities, which is always around this holistic approach of praying and raising awareness and living simply and engaging in prophetic action. And so our hope is that we can pray for the Synod, as well as use this opportunity to reflect on the ways that we've fallen short in protecting the planet and Indigenous peoples, to raise awareness of what's going on, as many people I think in the church don't realize that this process has been ongoing and that this Synod will be taking place in October, as well as to raise awareness of the Amazon and the many voices and peoples that live there. And then we also want to engage in prophetic action around lifestyle and advocacy that will help to protect the region. So I'll just share a few of the ways that we've done this at GCCM, and we've set up a website where we've put together all of these actions around how we're trying to promote the Synod. And as you heard in the opening prayer, one thing that we're hoping to do in collaboration with REPAM is to highlight Amazonian martyrs. So those people who have lost their lives because of trying to protect the Amazon or the Amazonian people. And so here I'm just sharing with you a Laudato Si reflection. This is a resource that we offer for our Laudato Si circles, and it was focused on Sister Dorothy Stang as a way just to highlight her story and to pray with the issues that she fought for. And then this Lent, we focused on working towards a plant-based diet, recognizing that cattle ranching is one of the biggest sources of deforestation in Brazil. And so one thing that we all can actually do to protect our planet and places like the Amazon is to reduce our meat consumption. And so that's been something that we're working towards at Lent, but also just on an ongoing basis is, can we reduce our meat consumption? For some of us, maybe giving up meat completely is not realistic, but we could strive to include more plant-based meals in our diet. We could even adopt the former Catholic tradition of not eating meat on Fridays, even beyond Lent. For many of you, maybe that's something you remember, that all Fridays were meatless, regardless of when it was in the liturgical year. So that's something that I think we all can do in solidarity with the Amazon. And then on Earth Day, you may have seen that our campaign is focused on trees and biodiversity, biodiversity is the theme for the global Earth Day network. So we've tied that in also with trees, and kind of in solidarity with the Amazon, looking at ways that we can increase biodiversity and increase the number of trees. So this is taking place this weekend. Since Earth Day was Monday, right after Easter, that was a little tough timing. So there'll be hundreds of events taking place around the globe around Earth Day and these themes. And so just look out for that. Oops. The next thing I wanted to just highlight is that in the season of creation, so some of you are aware that season of creation is the time of year when Christians come together under one voice to pray and take action for creation. It starts September 1st, the World Day of Prayer for Creation, and goes until October 4th, which is the Feast of St. Francis. And this year's theme is Web of Life and Biodiversity. And so it's a great way that we're hoping to use this time as Catholics to highlight the Synod, highlight the Amazon, given that it takes place right before the actual Synod. And so we'll be sending out materials in the next month about ways to celebrate Season of Creation, but I just wanted to offer a few that were related to biodiversity, but also related to the Amazon. As I mentioned, it's a great time to do educational events around the Amazon and the Synod, since it happens right before the gathering. Locally, you can create your own kind of bio buffer zones and then engage in advocacy around palm oil and biodiversity. And then somewhat related to the Amazon is the climate strikes that will be taking place, that are taking place every Friday, but there will be some big ones that happen in September. And then, as I mentioned, we've put together a small group process of discernment with that preparatory document for the Synod. And we've broken it down into different parts so that a small group can meet and pray with the document and really discern what is God saying to me through this process for my church locally or for me personally. And so it includes images and questions, but this will be available on our website shortly. But it's a way to enter into the dialogue with the wider church on the Amazon and on the Synod. So this will be a resource that will be available for you all. And then I just wanted to mention that during the Synod itself, October 6th through 27th, we'll be working with groups like REPAM. There's going to be like a Tent of the Martyrs that will take place in Rome. During the Synod, there's going to be conferences, and then there will be parallel events that will start popping up. Like there are several in Brazil that hope to take place, given so much of the Amazon is in Brazil. But just again, to highlight the importance of this event and of this process and the need to bring greater attention to this region and its peoples. So at this point, I'm going to stop, and you're invited now to pose any questions. You can pose your questions in the chat, or you can, I think that's probably easier if you put your questions in the chat box, and between Susana and I, we will try to respond to them. In the meantime, Susana, is there anything else you wanted to add while we wait to see if there's any questions?
Well, maybe just to highlight that this is a special synod, but about a special region in the world. But it will be a worldwide synod. So many bishops of other parts of the world representing those regional church platforms, as like in Europe or in North America, in Africa, Asia, they will also participate as synodal fathers. So it's very important for us to share those voices, that message from the Amazon, not only with the bishops of the Amazon region, but with all the church in the world, for them to understand a little more what the world has to do with the Amazon. So everything is interconnected, and to care for the Amazon we can do from every single part of the world. And taking care of the Amazon is also taking care of those other forests that also preserve the diversity and the life of the planet.
Great. So there's a few questions. I don't know if you can see them, Susana, but one question is just, are there any recommended reading materials, particularly books?
Yeah, well, maybe it's easier when you enter the site of Vatican News. They share a lot of the information that is coming from different languages, Portuguese and Spanish especially, but they also translate some of those materials. But in Facebook, we have the Facebook of REPAM. They also publish some information in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So it's better if you connect also with Facebook. And we have, if you understand Spanish, we have some this blog, the Periodista Digital. They also share a lot of information, and also they make small discussions about the whole process.
Great. So we'll add those links to the email that goes out to all the participants. So great. So Susana, there's a question there that did you say there were 120 martyred environmental leaders there? Could you say more about them?
Well, I told you that we're all 120 in 10 months just in Colombia. So if we made the whole perspective for the 9 countries in the Amazon region, of course there are a lot of more of them, but right now it's very threatening for them in Colombia and Brazil especially. In Venezuela, we have also a very complex reality, but those 3 countries will be the most danger for an environmental leader. That means the people that are defending the rights of the territory, the rights of the water, the rights of the of the forests. So they are being persecuted for what they do. Not always they have a relation with politics. So it's more like the role they are playing as environmental leaders.
And is there a list of those leaders somewhere that people can?
If you look for it as in Colombia, just what happened in Colombia this last month, they have like very a lot of information about it. I just closed the window, but I can look for it. Well, I can send you that website where they have the whole statistics of those crimes and so.
Great. So there's a question from Virginia Fitfield about, are Indigenous people from North America being invited to the Synod to add their voices?
Well, the indigenous of North America also participated on the preparatory process of the Synod. We were together in several meetings for the last the last 3 years. REPAM and the indigenous peoples of different regions also, they are gathering for discussing these topics. But I don't know, like they are very close with that information, like who is going to the Synod. We are just certain of the Synodal Fathers as the bishops of the Amazon region and other of the national bishop conferences that will be participating, but of course they have a small group of specialists and special guests to share with the Synodal Fathers, but they have no like right to vote in the discussions, but they have the right to participate with their voices. But I don't know if from the Vatican they will be inviting some other indigenous representatives from other parts of the planet.
And there's a question about kind of this synod compared to other synods. And I don't know if you'll be able to respond, but how does this synod compare with other synods held recently? Is it smaller because it focuses on one region? And do you think it will receive the same amount of attention?
Well, first of all, yes, it's different from other synods, as it's the first synod, first special synod focused on the region, but appealing the whole world. This synod is not smaller, like the amount of people participating is like they have the top, the room is full with all the participants. They are trying to make these very diverse invitation, like to special people that may be interested to have their voices there. But in length, those 3 weeks will be like what they have done with the youth and also maybe with family. I don't know. I don't remember how many weeks they were. But of course, it's like the first synod, or maybe where these appeals from the Pope that talked about the synodal process of this effort of making territorial hearings is the first time it's happening for the church. As right now will be like every synod will have to do these territorial hearings. So the Amazon region will be the first one, but the other ones in the future will also share that methodology, like because in the past they just the bishop conferences, they had to send the answers to the questionnaire to Rome, and we couldn't notice if they had a consulting process or some other diverse convocatory to fill in those questions. So yes, it's different in certain ways, and yes, also is not different in some others.
Great. And then just a quick follow-up, because somebody asked, is this the first synod on an ecological issue? And I believe it is. I mean, the fact that integral ecology is in the title of the theme is huge. So yeah, this is the first time. And if you read the preparatory document, you see a lot of Laudato Si woven into that. So then there's also a couple of questions about advocacy. So whether, I know at GCCM, one of the things we've been thinking about are what are kind of advocacy campaigns that can be done in solidarity with the Amazon. But a couple of questions asked, do you envision direct action calling out, say, large actors in soy farming or cattle? And have there been examples of other actions in the North that have been effective in showing solidarity for, say, land defenders?
Yes. Well, REPAM is trying to accompany those specific cases in the Amazon region. We know that the challenge is huge for we have a lot of violations of human rights and the rights of the environment, but we are beginning since 2016 with cases with special territories where the church is also linked with the local organizations. So we have like a school of human rights that teach the people how to engage those knowledge, those the legal language and all the processes between those demands on human rights, that they can look for justice in a regional perspective, as in America, or with the Human Rights Commission of Latin America of America, and also the universal perspective with the UN platforms. So REPAM is directly accompanying those cases, linking the people from the territory to special institutions that of advocacy that go with the leaders to those spaces to let them share what is happening and also demand what the international justice can do for them. It's a progressive process, so we have no answer for all of them right away, but these like periods of time where every institution accompanies certain territories. Of course, we have a lot of demands on, especially the mining industries, the oil industries. We have had no cases from the soy industries, but of course we have a lot of expropriations of territory that comes from the monoculture way of dealing with the earth, especially in Brazil. These corn and soy lands that were in the past indigenous people's lands. So, well, kind of that would be the experience that REPAM has. Of course, making those small steps to a more articulated network. You know?
Right. Yeah, I think that people are interested in now what can they do? Are there specific campaigns or actions that could support some of the issues that you've seen?
Yes, of course. We have a network, an international network that is supporting to share this Amazon message to the world. So they are like, of course, church institutions that they try to link with the media of their countries, especially in Europe and in North America. So it's always useful to support those campaigns as they are promoting to share the direct voices of the people from videos and audios of it and letters. So they try to share with in different languages what is happening in the Amazon, what is all the whole process of the Amazon Synod, and they are all part of REPAM. So if you look for the REPAM website, you will find also what is happening in some other parts of the planet, also in the social networks too. So it's easy to link, especially in Europe and in North America.
Great. And related to engagement, I know one thing that that you all are trying to do is to really kind of educate the bishops about the synod, and you're sending them information. But a lot of the people on this, I would say on this webinar, are probably from they're from all over the world, but a lot from like North America or Canada. And there's a question about are there suggestions of how we can engage our bishops in North America?
Well, we have on March we were there in Georgetown University in Washington D.C. We organized a integral ecology conference. Just the idea was to link everybody with the message of building this synodal church in the whole world. But also what it means to all these bishops all over the world to have a very strong conscience of what is happening in the Amazon and other special biomes in the whole world. So they have a lot of statements of those people that participated on the Congress that will be like very useful to remind or share. Look what happened on March of this year here. So what has to do with all of us, and what is the position of every bishop about that. So it's very clear. Everybody had somebody that represent the region in North America, Central America, of course the Amazon region, Europe, Africa, Asia Pacific. They all came, cardinals, bishops, representing those hierarchies, and also the territorial voices. So of course they have like some measures already, but all the news that came these days of the Congress are also helpful to remind them what is most important for them to understand. They are all in the social networks, so like if you looked for what was happening those days in Washington, it will be also useful.
Great. And at GCCM in the next months, we'll be sharing also some kind of resources or ideas of how to engage your bishops. I mean, one of the biggest ways is going to be through the season of creation. and using that as a way, you know, to invite your bishop or your priest to celebrate Season of Creation as a way to highlight the Amazon in the upcoming Synod. So we'll be having, sharing some resources, and we'll be developing those hopefully with REPAM. But this is a way to kind of, is another way to kind of remind the bishops of like, hey, this Georgetown conference happened, you've been receiving resources, and me as a parishioner, person of faith, want to make sure we're highlighting these in the coming months. So
of course we have like the of the bishops in the Amazon region as the direct like people of that need that information, but of course we are preparing a lot of materials for them in the future. So it's very it's a very rushing time for us, and we are trying to make like a very objective documents with scientific information of why the Amazon region is so important. That kind of brochure will be delivered for all the bishops in the world, but of course they need some support of the people demanding those information. Like if you cannot say that you have known nothing from the Amazon, you have some scientific information, you have some church speeches and church positions about it. So of course the role that we play as Christians, as direct part of the peoples of God, we can try to demand them to have a position about, a clear positions about those information.
Great. And Father Chris asks, Susana, how were you able to represent the voice of each group as you walk this part of healing their wounds?
Well, it was just what I was trying to share with you. Like we, at the same time that we hear those cries, those voices, those demands, we are trying to send away what those messages mean. But also, it's a very local opportunity to make a commitment of the church. So we as REPAM try to accompany those efforts of the church of getting the distances coming more close from the people of the church, and also the people that are demanding some help from the church. So at the same time, we are trying to accompany those realities in the local perspective, but also to send away the message that we have to deliver to the whole world. So it has been like, as I told you, it's not about just the Synod in October, but it's a long-term process that the Synod came to reanimate, like to strengthen, and it's very important for us what we will do in the future after the Synod. So after the Synod, we hope that everybody is more engaged with the process in the Amazon, but also we know that of course the Amazon will remain as a peripheral reality to the church and to the world. So we have to keep like patient to what we can do from the local to the more wide perspective. And it's not easy, it's not the only solution. We have to connect with others as the civil society that is also helping, trying to help the Amazon region and the people. So we are not over with the Synod. We are not over exactly after the Synod, but we have to keep trying to do those efforts. I don't know if that answered the question. It's a very complex question, but it's what we try to do, we dream to do.
Great. And then maybe one final question is, can you clarify the significance of paths of evangelization, especially for Indigenous people? That's part of the the goal of the Synod.
Yeah, of course, that is one of the more richest part of the process, as the church in the Amazon has a very complex history of given a message as the only message, and of course raising what the indigenous people had for thousands of years as their own spirituality. So these new paths are paths built on the dialogue between what is sacred and essential to the spirituality of the indigenous peoples in particular, but what the church is adding to that spirituality, but beginning from their reality, from their option to live their own spirituality, their own symbols of what is sacred for them. So right now we have a lot of testimonies of ways of on how the church, in a very humble way, they accompany the life of the people, but having a very sideway position, like not in the center of it, but in the sides, like giving them what they ask for the church, but not what the church thinks is the thing that they have to deliver to the people. So that is one of the very complex things in the reality, but also one of the hopeful things in the Amazon region synodal process, as we want to share to the world that this that is happening in some parts of the Amazon is also a testimony of, or a hopeful testimony to other biomas where indigenous people live, and of course they have their own spirituality that can dialogue with what the Catholic dogma propose.
Great. All right, well, I think we could probably go on and on. And Susana, we're so grateful that you took the time, because I think many of us just feel like we have an inside perspective of this whole process that can seem so narrow. So I think you've really broken open the complexity and the depth of this process and the importance. And so super grateful for your work and for being present. And we'll look for ways that we can continue to support this process. So as I put in the chat, we'll be sharing the PowerPoint and a recording of this email. And also we got some good suggestions of ideas, such as to have concise announcements before and during the synod that can be put in bulletins, things like that. So we'll be looking at GCCM to see how we can do that, as well as the advocacy piece. I know there's some interest in advocacy, so looking at ways that we can respond in that way as well to what's happening. So with that, we'll thank you for all of you for being present. And Susana, I think you're going to close us in prayer.
Yeah, I wanted to just, I saw that somebody of Guyana is here connected, so I hope this reminds the process in Guyana was a very diverse, was the first time that the church gathered the indigenous people from all over Guyana, and I was very glad to be with them. So I wanted to share with you the synodal prayer that they built for that meeting, for those months where they prepare the synodal process. So I hope you all remain silent inside and outside for hearing this prayer that comes from other peripheral reality inside the Amazon region. We always it's easy to forget about these three Guyanas, the Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana, and we have to keep our eyes and our hearts close to those small realities. So All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of our creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, and we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize what we are proudly unite with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. Bless your church here in Guyana, and that we may listen attentively to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Bless our Holy Father Pope Francis, all our bishops in the Amazon region, that together we may prepare well for the coming Synod. Amen.
Amen. So thank you all. Thank you for being here. It means a lot. And we'll be following up and hope to continue this important conversation. So thank you
very
again,
much.
Susana. And
Thank
God
you
bless
for
everybody.
Bye.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.